Appreciate you streaming in here on Birds 365. Oh, I can see the like buttons being clicked as we speak. Please, we could use your help because Mike Gill has arrived, one of the more popular segments we do each and every single week. And he's adjusting his camera because he's going to show us what T-shirt Mike Gill is wearing today.
Yeah, I got a new vantage point, too. I got a new setup in my living room, so it's a little bit better of a seat for me. But today I'm rocking the Tennessee Brewworks Brewery.
Brewworks. All right. We want
Actually,
brewery.
That's actually a very nice shirt. But
yeah, got the guitar pick.
I predicted last night with my producer from
he went Ivy League on you. You're going to take another smart school, Mike Gill.
I thought for sure you'd be going to some university that wouldn't accept McMullen, McDonald, or Gill as a student, but they'll sell you a T-shirt anytime you want to buy a T-shirt.
But the brewery will always accept me.
That's true, and me and John. That's a place that all three of us could attend.
That's a good point. That's a valuable point as well.
Yes, the Tennessee Brewworks, Nashville. I was there this summer. Fantastic. 1927 was the brew. It's a little off the beaten path from Broadway, but you got to get off Broadway to go find the good stuff. So there you go.
I like it. Very nice. All right. This question is for both you guys because John and I were just talking about it before we punched you up, Mike. I want to take it to another step. If all three of us can agree that the Eagles, and when I say the Eagles, that's collective, coaching staff, quarterback, the other players, are struggling against the blitz. I don't think anybody can deny that at this time. As a team, they're struggling with the blitz. And Tampa blitzes. They're one of the top three blitzing teams in the National Football League, and you check their stats, their sacks are spread out to linebackers and safeties and the like. It's not all just the defensive end who gets there. So it's coming on Monday night. The Eagles need to be prepared for it. How do you think they try and beat it? Will it be more scheme-oriented? Will it be more player personnel-oriented by keeping blocks in the back, going more to tight end, seeing a lot more of, let's say, a Jack Stoll in the game? How do you think the Eagles will try and countermand them bringing the blitz? Mike, you first.
Well, if we all remember, I know the Phillies were still in the regular season at the time. The Eagles have played the Buccaneers, and in that game, they ran the ball 40 times. That's one way to try to get a blitz to kind of calm down, run right past it, and run right through it. They ran the ball 40 times for 200 yards. And one of the things I think we've kind of lost in this Eagles season, I know they were ahead of Arizona a couple of weeks ago, but this team is way different when they can play with the lead than they can justify in their minds running the ball a little bit more. The other part of your question, what if that's not the case? What if you're not running the ball? Yeah, then they have to really, it's funny. I saw a play during the game, and we're talking about the blitz, and John was on my show, and I heard him right here talk about, they had hot routes in Indianapolis, and Rivers, he's the king of just checking it down and finding guys. But there's a play they ran, and I don't know that this is all. This is why I tried to ask John, because he's in the stadium, and he can see. I saw the play from above when they showed the aerial, and they're blitzing, and every receiver's backs to the quarterback. They're not turning. They're not looking. So he has no one to throw the ball to. Now, is this a byproduct of that? Is this a byproduct of that's one play that I happen to get an aerial shot on TV? I don't get that all the time. Are the receivers not cognizant, or is the quarterback just missing the guy? Is it a combination of things? So there's a lot involved in that question, Jody, of who is ultimately at fault when there's a blitz coming and they don't know how to figure it out, find it, and who the check down guy is. Because the Eagles played the Giants last week, and Reddick is dropping back into coverage. And then soon as Taylor rolls out of the pocket, Reddick is a lost puppy out there, and he just goes after the quarterback because that's what's in his mind that I'm supposed to do. And it's almost like the Giants are baiting him. We're going to go right to you because we know you're going to come after us. And as soon as you vacate that position, here comes the guy sliding right into your spot. We're going to hit him for 30 yards. The Eagles just don't seem to have that cognizant in their offense right now for whoever's fault it is. I don't know that I can pinpoint one guy because I can't see above every play. But I did see one play, and I think Orlovsky picked the exact play that I'm talking about because Stoll was in the game, which is rare, so I can remember that. He's running a seam right down the middle of the field with his back, and so are the other two guys. They're all running fly patterns.
It was probably all I don't know the play, but it was probably all go, which is 4 verticals.
On a third down, the team's blitzing, and you've got everybody running down the field. Yeah, so that particular play, there was no one to throw the ball to on a check down.
Which is rare when you know the blitz is coming. You shouldn't be running all go, and they've done it twice, I think, over the past 2 games, which, sometimes you get caught. Sometimes you do call the wrong play, and sometimes you expect something, you get something different, it looks bad. So by no means am I trying to say, all I was trying to say yesterday is the Eagles have hot routes built into their offense. I mean, pick your favorite high school in the area. They have hot routes built into their offense. So saying, especially a guy who had Phillip Rivers, doesn't know what a hot route is. Yeah. I mean, that's absurd. That's ludicrous. I want everybody to stipulate that. And I can't even get people to stipulate that.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that it's not there. I'm just pinpointing in my mind. I don't know.
Yeah, last
year, nothing went wrong. So I don't remember having this conversation about, there's no hot routes. They're not beating the blitz. They didn't seem to have any adversity on the offensive side of the ball. But as you mentioned, John, yesterday on my show, the numbers are almost the same. Not the last 6 weeks, but throughout the course of this season, offensively, they have been a top 5 to 10 offense almost the entire season.
Yeah,
but eye test doesn't say that to us.
No, they finished 8th this year, and I think the difference, they finished 3rd. So remember, we're talking about the 3rd ranked offense in 2022, the 8th ranked offense in 2023, and you can explain that difference basically with the turnover difference. They didn't turn it over last year. They turned it over this year. So that's mainly different. You have AJ. Look at AJ Brown. I mean, the record in this town for 40 years was Mike Quick. For 40 years, he beat it 2 years in a row. Well over 1,400 yards 2 years in a row. You have 2,000-yard receivers. You have a 1,000-yard rusher. The quarterback set a franchise record for touchdowns this year, by the way. Franchise record for touchdowns. NFL record for rushing touchdowns, tied with Josh Allen. This offense is pretty good. They're struggling at one particular aspect right now, and that's the blitz. Sometimes it is the coach's
fault. They have a guy, John and Jody. Dallas Goedert in this offense should be killing it then. I mean, if you have the blitz coming and you're saying hot route or short stuff, dump off, he should be wide open in the middle of the field, just sitting there. Almost, when I went to West Virginia, there was a guy named Lovett Purnell was the tight end, and we used to call him the security blanket. You'd blitz, and there's Purnell, who couldn't do anything. He just caught the ball like a statue. But he was Goddard is a very good pass catching player, and you would think this is a situation where he would excel in, and yet he seems to be invisible in this offense.
Well, ironically, I think you use, and this is what Nick, I think, does well. You use what you have. You use the strengths of the players you have. And he's playing to the strengths of Jalen Hurts, or he's trying to play to the strengths of Jalen Hurts, which I think is a very good thing. I see quarterbacks all the time saying, for all that, and I would vote for Kevin Stefanski as coach of the year. With all the things that he's done and overcome injuries all over the place, 4 quarterbacks. He got better with Joe Flacco, though. And people are saying, why do you get – he's a Shanahan guy. That's who he learned from. He learned the Shanahan-Kubiak offense, the Gary Kubiak offense. That's what he learned. Play action. What does Joe Flacco do well? Play action. Stands in the pocket. It kind of fits in it. What Nick has been able to do, whether it's Phillip Rivers, he changes the offense. Whether it's Jalen Hurts, he changes the offense. Whether it's Jacoby Brissett, going all the way back to Andrew Luck. He's been able to morph offenses to take advantage of the strengths of that particular quarterback. Every quarterback. And I think if Phillip Rivers, by the way, would have won a Super Bowl, he didn't. He'd be a Hall of Fame quarterback. That's how much respect I have for Phillip Rivers. Andrew Luck was off the charts gifted, obviously derailed career because of injuries. Jacoby Brissett, not so much. Jalen Hurts is tremendously talented, has had tremendous success. All the offenses are different. I think that's the biggest strength of Nick Sirianni. Jody will know. Jody will tell you. Damo's one of our favorite guests. He's on every week. He was talking about dumping the football. I've been saying since day one, they're not going to be a dump-off team. They're not going to be a dump-off team. The quarterback doesn't like it. They're not going to dump the football off a lot. Again, the extreme people. Doesn't mean never. Means a lot. Jalen Hurts does phenomenal things. Remember the Olamide Zaccheaus touchdown where he's extending the play? Sure. Phillip Rivers can't do that. Remember the 3rd and 20 to A.J. Brown? Phillip Rivers can't do that. But Phillip Rivers is better at handling the blitz than Jalen Hurts. So he tries to do different things to take advantage.
I guess one question with that is I don't know that we're looking at Hurts as, there's a lot of guys that can improvise and make plays because they can run around backyard football. That doesn't mean they're very good. I'm not suggesting that Hurts is in that category, but you're saying, Rivers can't make this play. Well, yeah, there's a bunch of guys that can run around and just, avoid tackles for 6 seconds and then finally find a guy wide open because the corners are just running around like a crazy person. That doesn't necessarily mean because he can execute plays that Rivers can't. Now, I'm not trying to blame Hurts to say but I think one of the big problems here is what role does Hurts have in why this team is what it is right now? In all facets, I don't have a lot of, when things are going good, he has this even keel. It's not enough. We got to do better. The standard is the standard. But now that things aren't going so good, I don't feel like, man, this guy's really got me feeling confident about where this team's going. It's almost everybody else has to kind of say something. And where's the quarterback stepping up in the middle of this and saying, you know what? We haven't played well enough, and I'm part of the problem, and it's got to get better. It just seems to be. It's this.
That's interesting because you know who brought that up to me? Our buddy Zach Berman, and he was talking about the play in Seattle, where Nick kind of looked bad protecting the players. Not kind of, looked very bad protecting the players.
Nobody made Nick go to pass interference. He went there on his own. That's on him. That was a dumb thing to say, and he chose to say it. We understand the reason that he said it. He was covering for his players.
You're right. It was still a dumb thing to say.
To the point that A.J. Brown called him made him look like a fool.
Made him look like a fool. But I will say, and you're both 100% correct, but that's not Zach's point. Zach's point was A.J. Brown stepped up and explained it was his fault. The quarterback never did.
True.
The quarterback was happy skating through,
thinking
Nick Sirianni's a fool, making a bad decision. Is that a good thing? I thought it was a valid point for Zach to bring up. Is that a good thing?
And I'm thinking, look, everybody, when Jalen Hurts got into this league, it wasn't this guy's got a great arm. This guy's a playmaker. He can improvise. He can do this. He's accurate. None of those things we're talking about. What do you think of Jalen Hurts? Well, he's a tremendous leader. That's the only thing we ever heard. And now, when the team needs a leader the most, I'm not sure that's coming out. I don't know that that's jumping off the page of, hey, this guy is the franchise leader in touchdowns. He's second in MVP last year. He had a great game in the Super Bowl. Maybe was the best player on the field. All this stuff. But now the team's 1-5, and I keep waiting for him to be the guy that says something to make this team want to look at him and say, we're going to be all right. And that doesn't seem to be happening right now.
Here's where I think the legit criticism of Jalen Hurts' leadership comes into play. Because even though John gets in there and all of his media cohorts for a period of time to be able to be in the locker room, it's minimal as compared to as much time that the Eagles actually have in there. And we don't know that Jalen isn't a good leader and isn't talking to his teammates and isn't helping out when the doors are shut and it's just a team. But on Sundays, when the team is struggling and he's sitting there on the bench by himself, staring straight into space as his teammates around him are going, what the hell is wrong? Why couldn't we 3 and punt again? He doesn't interact with his teammates while the game is ongoing. And I guess that's Jalen's thing, and Jalen's got to take care of Jalen because he's the quarterback and he's got to stay focused. He's got to do what keeps him capable of doing the best that he can. But you got to be able to at least interact. I'm not talking about going up, getting in somebody's face, going up, throwing an arm around somebody. But he doesn't even talk to his teammates. He puts a couple of seconds in on the pad, and he puts that down, and he stares off into space. There's no way around that. That's just the way that he handles it. And I don't know that that's the best way that a quarterback leader can act on a Sunday afternoon while the game's going badly.
Definitely noted. I it's just like Charlie Sheen in Major League 2, right? His story, Hurts, has been constantly the coach's son. Then he got benched. We know the whole story. And it almost seems like everything for him has been, I'm working towards being accepted. I'm working towards this acceptance in my field. And then he finally got it. And it's like, now what am I, like, you hate to question what's he fighting for next? Well, the Super Bowl. Well, sometimes, there's a lot of examples of people who got to a point and decided, I've made it. I hope that's not him. I didn't question this contract because of the fight from him, because he's always wanted to prove that he belonged and was better than what people thought. But unfortunately, right now, I think he is just as much of part of the conversation of why this team, and by the way, defensively is way up here. I don't know if you watch Suits, but the defense is up here. The offense is down here on the reason why.
I ain't even talking about the offense, but everybody wants to talk about the offense.
Well, you know why, John? The quarterback is the highest paid guy. Yeah. He's the guy. It's like when the Sixers lose. I don't care about Doc Rivers in the past or James. It's Joel Embiid. You lost because of Joel Embiid. He's the best player. Whether it's his fault or not, you are the franchise. And when you take that money, it all changes for you. It changes everything. It changes the blame. It also changes the makeup of the roster. So when you decide to take that money, you better be sure you want the linebackers to get ignored, the safeties to get ignored, this guy to get ignored. It all comes back to you and your decisions as the leader of the football team. So whether he's at the top of the list or not, he will always be at the top of the list.
Yeah, that's fair. And, I think if the Eagles do go into Tampa and win the game, it will be because of the offense. And the defense sort of has to persevere and do as best as possible, because I don't think there are any fixes built in. The Eagles' fixes on offense have to deal with how good their talent is, and it's tremendous. Defensively, particularly in the back seven, it is not tremendous. Now you're going to get Slay back, but you also have to expect some rust. Hasn't played for a while. Bradbury's had the year he's having. Reed Blankenship's now banged up again. Kevin Byard's been just kind of a guy. Zach Cunningham looked bad. There's a perfect example. Now, Zach Cunningham was out for a few weeks. He looked terrible. He had been playing pretty well before the injury, but he looked terrible. So to assume Slay's going to just show up after not playing for a month and be Pro Bowl corner, I don't know.
No.
The good news is Baker Mayfield and that offense is on the other side, and they're struggling. So I don't know. But this assumption, Mike, that the coaches are joysticks, or the players are joysticks, the coaches are manipulating. It ain't that. It ain't that.
Well, it's an interesting dynamic, John, of you talk to a guy who played most of the time, they're going to say it's the players. You talk to fans, there's this dynamic of the fans know they can't play the game, but they think they could coach the game, and therefore will blame the guy whose job we feel that we could actually do. I can't be
I think it's more of they want to protect the players of their favorite team. For the most part, there's a couple guys. That's always a nebulous standard because then sometimes
but
they cling to a
subconsciously,
guy.
I think it's because I can't block, but I can tell you how to block because 45 years ago I blocked for Polk High. So therefore I'm qualified to say that, you didn't do your job.
I had a big year at Polk High.
Then, right. The coaches, you talk about this all the time. You don't like the play. It's not the play call. It's the result of the play. You mapped it out on the show yesterday. There's a play. It seems that 10 guys are doing their job. One guy isn't. And if one guy doesn't do his job, the whole play is blown up. If that guy does his job, we all saw the play that A.J. Brown was talking about. Everybody did their job. Juergens got blasted. If Juergens holds his block, Hurts is still running like Forrest Gump on his run. No one's catching him. Yeah. But one guy messes up. So the play call was the right play. The execution of that play was not. I think on offense, that's the problem. But on defense, I think they got way more problems than that. And this is I've never seen an amalgamation of, hey, we're going to hire a guy who doesn't have any background in this style of defense. Then midway through the season, or further than midway through the season, we're going to put you in charge of that guy's defense. So now you are going to call that guy's defense for him. And then in the middle of it, say, you know what? I don't feel comfortable calling that guy's defense. So I'm going to implement things from my defense in the middle of calling that guy's defense. Yeah. So to me, the offense might have guys that are not executing. And I do agree. I think they can ass backwards their way into 24 points by accident if they have to, if it comes down to it. But I don't know how they get this defense together because of what they did.
All right. Since you went there, let's follow up. The hiring of Matt Patricia. Who's to blame? Is it Patricia because you believe he lied? That when they had to sit down and had a meeting with him, they explained the type of defense. The coach has been outspoken about his belief in the Fangio defense and limiting big plays, which, oh, by the way, they're one of the worst in the National Football League at giving up big plays. So words are nice. Results are nothing. We're back to a results-decided business. The Eagles stink on defense. Do you think Patricia lied and said, oh, no, I can wrap my head around a Fangio defense. I see what you guys are trying to do. I can do that. Or do you think the Eagles just didn't emphasize it enough and said, we just need another experienced guy here. We got a kind of inexperienced overall coordinator. We could use just a smart defensive mind. Do you think Fangio pulled the wool over their eyes, or do you think they didn't put Fangio on question enough when they hired him to say, you're going to be good with this, and you're going to adapt to this, and you're going to be able to get in lockstep with the rest of our defensive coaches? Which do you think it more likely is?
Look, it's two things here. One, yes, anybody, my first job when I'm in my 20s, they say, hey, you're going to host a radio show, but you also have to sell your own advertising. Yeah, sure, I'll do that. And I don't want to sell advertising. I'm going to do the radio show. You're going to do whatever you have to do to get in the building. Patricia, hey, can you learn this guy's defense and kind of, yeah, sure, I could do that. You're in the building now. Now you have influence on your next step in what you want to do. So there's that point of it of, hey, I need a job. This team has a lot of talent. This guy's he's been a coordinator before, but it didn't go all that well. And maybe he knows them. And hey, there's an opportunity for me here. The second part of this is, and John, I think you've hit on this. I've talked about this a lot. The league is changing right before our eyes. And this Fangio defense is getting figured out. If the Eagles actually had some foresight to say, maybe this defense is getting figured out, we want someone in here that has another idea in the event that we need to make a replacement. And if we have to do it in season, it might be bad. But this might be, I would have to give them some credit if they foresighted that for down the road. That would only be the answer if Patricia is the coordinator next year. And they said, hey, now he's going to get the whole offseason to put his defense in. But who decided to make him the coordinator, I think, is interesting. I know, John, you have advocated and strongly said this was Nick's idea. A lot of people think that it was told. Well, guess what? If this is Nick's idea and he said, hey, I want to make Matt Patricia the coordinator, and they give up a 30-burger in this game, that's a fireable offense. That is a decision that essentially blew up not only your season, potentially your locker room. Who knows? There could have been people who said, "Why did you get rid of Sean? What did he do wrong?"
Well, I
And then other
guarantee you,
people who
I
said,
guarantee you, there are guys on that team that feel that way.
Sure. So
I feel that way.
Sure. And to me, what we're watching right now, scheme, players, coaches, yada, yada. Something happened in that locker room that's not out there yet, because this is a disaster.
You know who's to blame for this above and beyond everybody else? Jonathan Gannon, because he was good enough to put together the second best defense in the NFL. So there was no way Sirianni was changing this offseason. There was no way he was going to go, well, maybe they're catching up to Fangio.
Wow.
He's going, no, they're not catching up. We had the second best defense. It's Gannon's fault.
It's ironic because I got killed for defending Nick Sirianni. Jody can tell you from pretty much day one. I said that was an awful decision going away from Sean Desai to Matt Patricia. I've been saying that pretty consistently. That's a awful decision. From Matt's perspective, though, to Jody's point, he was hired for a different position. There's no problem with if you want to use Vic Fangio. I mean, he started out really as a defensive assistant with the Philadelphia Stars way back in the day. And then he was a linebackers coach before he ever got a longtime linebackers coach in New Orleans before he ever got his first coordinator job. If you're in a different position, you want to learn other defenses. Every time I would see Matt Patricia, he had this big binder like this thick, and he'd walk around. It's good for him to learn other people's philosophies and encompass. He's a smart guy. That's why he knows so much. That's why people make fun of it, but he knows offensive football as much as defensive football, and they put him on the offensive side. He's just a football guy. He knows what he's watching. Now, then when you hire him after 13 games to be the coordinator, essentially, no matter what the title is, the defensive play caller, if you can't put in your system, when Vic Fangio was the linebackers coach in New Orleans, he wanted to run a different system. Trust me, everybody wants to run their own system, but you can't do that in week 14, week 15. It was one of the worst decisions ever. And if you want to blame Nick Sirianni, which I do, because I think maybe he's lying, but
he's shown a pretty strong indication in recent weeks of lying.
That's true too, and that's why I bring it up. But I'll say this: Howie Roseman.
I go back to Suits. His word means nothing any longer. He has already been called out by his own players.
Yeah, but there's
protecting them.
There's other parts to it as well, in the fact that Howie Roseman. Remember, Howie Roseman found Sean Desai. So Howie's on. It's not like it's Nick Sirianni's guy. Howie found him, and Nick approved him.
Well, that's another. John. When Andy was here, and people started to pluck his coordinators, the team had some problems. These coordinators, I think. I don't want to say get overlooked because people obviously chat away. Brian Johnson stinks. John Gannon stinks. This guy stinks. They're very important. Everybody stinks, right? But I do think one thing with Sirianni that worries me moving forward, and this is why I do think, if it was his decision to put Patricia in that role, that's a terrible decision of judgment right there.
I agree.
My question is, he brought two guys with him to this job, Shane Steichen, John Gannon. When Gannon got hired, this is a well-respected hire, and he got a head coaching job. Steichen, I think, was a little less heralded, but he got a head coaching job. How long is the Rolodex for Nick Sirianni? If you fire these guys, then who? Now you're going into a situation where you're not worried. You're going into Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman's contacts, and then they start to pick the guys, much like the Doug situation. Because I don't know how long the Rolodex is for Nick Sirianni.
It's not that long. It's already out. I mean, there's Kevin Patullo, there's Jason Michael.
Right.
Howie found Sean Desai, Howie found Brian Johnson.
And you're now bringing in a situation where you have the head coach getting handed guys, and you never know how you're going to mesh with somebody else. Someone says, hey, John and Jody, you guys are going to be a show. Well, I don't even know this guy. Well, work it out. Well, it works out fine, but that's not
It
always
works
the
out
case.
great. People love us, Mike.
Well, but I'm saying that's my point. Is that's not always the case. You might get two guys who don't like each other. Well, your hand here, Nick, work with this guy. Well, I don't like this guy's personality. We don't see eye to eye.
Well, look at Wink Martindale. Look at what's going on with the Giants.
Right. Well,
and Brian Daboll.
Once you get out of your comfort zone with the guys that you trust, how much can I put on his plate? I don't know. I don't know this guy. He's got to build that trust up. But I know this guy, and I know that I don't have to go into his meetings because he's handling it.
All right, so here's a key question. I guess it's more for John, but Mike, if you want to chime in, please feel free.
Yep.
Whose idea was Matt Patricia?
Oh, Howie. Howie brought Matt into the.
Well, that's what I go to the
Nick
foresight
Sirianni,
question. Did they foresight that there could be issues?
In hindsight, yeah, they did not.
Right,
trust
but do you believe Patricia was stuffed down Sirianni's throat? Or
Sure.
No, I don't
Sirianni
believe
okayed
that.
it?
I don't believe anybody was stuffed down his throat. He okayed it.
Ooh.
But
Okay.
Howie brought Matt Patricia. Not obviously he knew Matt Patricia. Everybody knows Matt Patricia, but Howie put him on the radar, and Nick approved it. That's how it's gone to this point. I'm not saying it's going to go to that point. You know, I just talked about Wink Martindale. Eagles fans would love Wink Martindale. Guess what? Wink Martindale talked himself out of Baltimore and the Giants because he can't get along with the head coach. I couldn't get along with Harbaugh after a number of years. Couldn't get along with Brian Daboll now. You really want that guy?
Well, guess what? If you can't get along after a number of years, if one of those years results in the ultimate prize 4 years down the road, you would take a confrontation on the sideline and talking yourself out of town. Most likely. Agree?
Yeah, that part I would.
And by the way, these are short-term jobs generally.
They
anyway.
are.
The realization that we're going to hire Wink Martindale and he's going to be here for 15 years is not happening anyway. These guys are here for 3-4 years, and we're seeing you got a coach who's got what's Sirianni's win percentage? He's got.
We just went through that. It's getting worse. But Jody had pointed out it was top 10.
He was 10th. Had the 10th best winning in the history of the National Football.
In the history,
I got to look it up. I know he fell.
Whatever it is, he's got a winning percentage where you're like, how could you even have this discussion? That's where we are in sports. It's the whole. If you can't win the whole thing, you're not good enough. That's
right. At Mike Gill show, that's right, Mike. I mean, that's where this guy won 25 of 27 games, and people want to run him out on a rail. I mean, they've never had that level of success in the entire history of this organization.
I would interject, and I agree, John. I'm just saying, Chip Kelly won a lot of games. It wasn't like he was a boob.
Not like
in
this.
Terms of, well, I'm just saying he won 10 games multiple times.
Games. Yeah.
And they got to a point where they realized this isn't working. He's not good enough. We've been figured out. So you can run the race and sprint the mile and be so far ahead of everybody, but realize you have 3 laps left to go and run out of gas. I think the Eagles saw he sprinted out of the gates and he's starting to run out of gas. Let's jump ahead of this. Does Nick Sirianni have a second act? Did he get to the sprint with what he's done? And now people have said, well, we figured this out. You did that. We've done this. You did that. We did that. Your coordinators are gone. What else you got? And are the Eagles looking at it and saying, he had a great sprint, but there's still 3 laps to go?
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's a 100-meter guy. Maybe he's not a marathon guy, but boy, it's quick. That sprint is quick. If you want to fire this guy, even if they lose in Tampa Bay, I would not advocate firing Nick Sirianni because as Jody always brings up, all right, where are you going then?
Well,
where are you going?
If I can get Mike Vrabel, I would do that. But
but this team's not going to hire him. You have to be honest with yourself.
Oh, I agree. I'm saying he's a guy that I would really think would be a good fit here, and I agree. I don't know that they're going to go that route, but I'm just saying. People say, well, if you're going to fire a guy, who you bringing in? I know they wouldn't bring in that guy, but if he was available, I would be very interested.
Yeah.
And he
is. Then you got to start talking about Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman because they don't want anybody with any cachet who's going to push back against what they want to do.
There's 2 different questions. Who do you think they would hire and who you would hire? And between McMullen, McDonald, Mike Gill, who we would hire really doesn't friggin' matter because we're not going to be the guys doing the hiring. I 2 things before we let you run, Gill. Number one, with the loss last week, Nick Sirianni fell from 10th to 14th. That's a
Ooh.
pretty big drop. Damn,
Yeah.
one game. But
Small sample size.
small sample
Yeah,
size
well,
can move the needle pretty
yeah.
damn quickly. He fell behind John's favorite, Matt LaFleur, who's having a nice year, by the way. Paul Brown and Tony Dungy and Don Shula. He was actually ahead of Don Shula. He's now behind Don
Yeah,
Shula.
I've never been a Matt LaFleur guy because I think he rode the wave of Aaron Rodgers, but I have to give him credit because he's doing a good job with Jordan Love. I like Jordan Love. I think they got a lot of good young receivers that they're doing a good job. I gotta revisit my Matt LaFleur.
And everybody in the Delaware Valley is rooting for the Green Bay Packers this week because they're playing the Cowboys in the playoffs. And the one other one Mike, you were worried about these guys being short term. We worry about, oh my God, is he going to be the coordinator for a decade? Come on, they come and go. My partner told me before the season started, don't be surprised if Brian Johnson's a one and done. That he's so well respected around the league that there will be teams coming knocking this offseason and talk to him. The last couple of days, we've seen about 20 names come up for interest in, have asked permission for. Can we talk to this guy for the coaching opportunities in the league? I've not seen Brian Johnson's name mentioned once.
No, hey, but if you want to put me on blast, Jody, I'm going to put you on blast. Way back at the start of the season, you said Sean Desai was more likely to get a head coaching interview than Brian Johnson.
And I would interject for both of you. Whose list was Nick Sirianni on? Nobody.
Yeah, well, exactly. But and there's still Tennessee. Nobody was expecting Vrabel to go. There's still going to be more. Look, Brian has taken a hit because the Eagles have been so crappy down the stretch. And that's part of the problem with these owners. They get too emotional, just like fans, to be honest. And they start, we got to go in a different direction.
You know what ends up happening, too. Like Arthur Smith is now, he got fired. Well, he was an offensive coordinator who was a head coach. Well, that guy was a head coach. You got to get him to be the coordinator. So there's all this everybody wants the other guy's trash because he used to be a head coach. That's the time of the season we're in.
Oh, I'm surprised we haven't heard Arthur Smith as offensive coordinator here. I'm sure it'll come up in the off season, but you got to get to the off season. I still think Brian will get, maybe an interview like Jonathan got one interview. Maybe he'll get one interview, but he's not going to be one of those hot guys.
Well, and I would say
he gets everybody's on the same list.
The first year,
like Ben
Sirianni was the play caller for about 6, 7, 8 games. Then he handed it over to Steichen. I don't think anybody watched Shane Steichen and said, man, this is such an innovative, great offense. Last year, Steichen did a great job and had a really good feel. It wasn't this, there wasn't a lot of, everybody said there's not a lot of motion. They don't move a lot. They didn't move a lot. There wasn't a lot of motion last year. But my point is, if you would have looked at Steichen's first year, you wouldn't have been like, people would want him gone. You got to give these guys a chance to kind of grow into the position.
Well,
Has Brian Johnson done enough good to say, hey, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to have problems that first year. We got to give you a second year to see now how much you've grown before you pull the plug and then try to find someone else who is not guaranteed to do it.
Well, that's how quick you mentioned the sports world, Mike. That's how quick it goes. I mean, when the Eagles were 10-1, Brian was getting interviews. I mean, there was no freaking question, but they fell apart down the stretch.
And keep in mind, another coordinator for Hurts, another new offense for Hurts.
Yeah.
You want to go down that road.
I also
with the same coach who calls it his offense. Please stop with that. Stop. Oh my God. How can he be asked to work with Brian Johnson? A guy he's known since he's 4 years old.
No. I'm talking about if you got rid of Brian. I'm talking about if you got rid of Brian Johnson. Now you're going to really a fourth play caller for him.
By the way,
if Brian Johnson's not back, it's going to be because he's fired, not because he's getting another job. He's not going to be hired. John, I'll disagree with you right here, right now. He will not get an interview.
I agree with that. I agree that he's not getting
none.
Well, if they lose out, it's definitely possible.
Lose out. They got one game to go. What do you mean lose out?
Well, that's what I mean. Lose out. If they don't win that game,
they lose the next game, the one more game they have.
Well, if he wins the next game and he plays well in, say, San Francisco, and he plays well, but the Eagles play well, the Eagles offense, all of a sudden these guys change at the drop of a hat. They they have recency bias like everybody else. So all of a sudden, as I said, when they were 10-1 and riding high, yeah, things were looking very good. Now they're looking very bad. I will say, because I got a lot of Frank Reich love, hindsight love. Frank Reich was here in 2016, almost got fired, by the way. Nobody liked him. 20 except Doug Peterson. They were 22nd in the NFL in offense. When they won the Super Bowl, they were 7th. The last 2 years, they were 3rd and 8th. They're 8th this year. It's still a pretty good offense, people. Yeah.
Yeah,
but
but
they struggle.
Is it a good offense because of the talent, or is it a good offense because of the scheme? I'm not putting that much of the Eagles' success on offense on scheme this year, and it's mostly Sirianni. But the implementation of Brian Johnson has not surprised me, wowed me, or blown me away.
It's always
I
say constantly, it's always personnel first. It's always personnel.
I have a
first.
texter to my show who texts in all the time. I may have brought it up here, but he says they shouldn't be top 5. They should be historically good.
Oh my God! Well, I can't. I don't know how you deal with those people. Everything should be
with this
the
talent,
best. Everything, the best.
With this
everything.
Talent. Well, and we talked about this during the San Francisco week. Do the Eagles have any less talent on offense than San Francisco?
Yes.
Oh, skill position, not offensive line. Skill position, yes.
Oh, I mean, okay, they have McCaffrey. I think he's the one guy who stands out.
That's big.
But is Debo? And is he significantly better than A.J. Brown?
He's not significantly better, but he's every bit as impactful. They're different. They're
right,
different
but that's
styles
the
of
play.
play.
They have Debo, you have A.J. Brown. They have Ayuk, you have Smith. They have Kittle, you have Goddard.
Kittle's better than Goddard. Ayuk's better than Smith.
And I got bad news for you, Eagle fans. Purdy's better than Hurts. Now, you want to go career and track record. Jalen was MVP last year. This year, it's not even a conversation. Purdy was just flat out better than Hurts. So the main position you got to look at
for that one. I'm not going. Ayuk's better than Devontae, and I love Devontae, but Ayuk had a phenomenal. He's a great. He's one of the most underrated players.
Did he have a great year? Is he better talent wise, or because he was in a better offense?
He's in a better offense, but I can't worry about offense. Everybody knows who watches this show how much respect I have for Kyle Shanahan as a play caller and play schemer. He's the best in the business. Mm-hmm. So he's better than Nick Sirianni. He's better than everybody else. That's part of it. I'm not blaming Brock Purdy for playing in that offense. That's his offense. That's his lot in life. Sometimes people win the lottery. Guess what? Brock Purdy's better than Jimmy Garoppolo and everybody else they ran through that. So he deserves credit as well. Ayuk's great in that offense. Samuel's great in that off. George Kittle, I love Dallas Goedert. George Kittle's best tight end in football, period.
Oh, yeah.
End of sentence.
I'm just saying, I'm not saying who's better or worse. If one guy's better, it's not a drastic difference of their talent is so much better than yours, but their offense is so much better than yours. Go forget San Francisco. You look at Miami. They got a lot of talent. Their offense has Hill, who you probably –
I got news for you. These same fans are, Kyle's better than Nick. They were laughing at Kyle Shanahan for having a backup tight end block Hassan Reddick in the NFC Championship game because they have no stinking idea what he's trying to accomplish on that particular play. And he's been doing it for years. The Shanahan-Kubiak offense, play action. You're trying to fool. You're trying to chip. You're not trying to hold up. And the quarterback didn't get the ball out on time.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hear about Kyle Shanahan's better when you make fun of him and say all this. Yes, he is better. He was better last year. He's better this year. He's going to be better next year. Doesn't mean you can't win a particular game on a particular day because talent trumps scheme. You talk to Colin all the time. Colin Thompson. Jimmy's and Joe's greater than X's and O's.
We did a lot of X and O in today with you, Mike Gill. We thank you for it, buddy. Have a good weekend. Looking forward to next work. Hey, and maybe after an Eagle win, you got to have your best T-shirt game on. Be ready next week, Gill. You ready?
I was going to wear my Dunedin Brewery today, but that's down in Florida, and I don't want to go Tampa on you guys. So I pulled
Okay.
the Tennessee.
Good call. Good audible
bring
there.
up. You're going to have to wear a Tampa T-shirt if the Bucs come up with a big upset win because the Eagles are the favorite.
I'll find my best pewter.
And don't go there. I know how to get from Dunedin to Tampa Bay Downs. I can make that trip from the home of the Blue Jays to make the last 3 races at Tampa Bay Downs. Mike Gill, thank you very much. From down at Shore 97.3, the Sports Bash, Mike Gill here with us on Birds 365. All right, coming back, we'll check in on a couple other topics, including PFF grades. They came out with the yearly grades for the Eagles. Some might surprise you a little bit, but I'll run those by John and Hunter Brody, WIP Zone. Hunter Brody going to join us coming up in 10 minutes. Stay here on Birds.